Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Brooke and I am a shuffle instructor. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the running man, and more specifically, really breaking down the body mechanics of the running man. So just a little bit of background. I've been choreographing and coaching and teaching dance for about 25 years now. And I also have a background in personal training and group fitness and all of that. So I'm really interested in what specifically is happening in the body and how it is that we learn new movement patterns. And part of that, how we learn new movement patterns, is having to train our nervous system first and create new pathways from the brain to the muscles that don't exist already because of our previous experience and all of our different movements. So with that in mind, training your nervous system first means that we have to go back to brain first learning. So actually thinking about what we're doing. So the more details that we have about what we're doing will just make that process happen a lot more efficiently and a lot faster. So what I want to do today is sort of deconstruct the running man, going through and isolating each different part, and then we'll bring it all back together as a whole. Before we get started, I just want to mention a previous video that I did called a bounce drill, and that is just another way to sort of start to work the patterns into your nervous system, especially if the running man feels a little bit awkward. And then in addition to this video, I will be posting a follow along choreography that I made that takes all of what we're about to break down now and puts it in a follow along choreography in a song that you can just do sort of as a warm up or whenever you want a little bit of extra practice. Okay, so this video is going to be really great for beginners who are just learning the running man, or anybody that just wants more specific details about what's happening in your body, especially if you're a teacher and you want to help some of your students as well. So with that being said, I do also want to point out that there are many different variations and different styles of the running man. So the way that I'm breaking down today is really just to get the foundation. There might be some things about weight distribution or hip alignment and things like that that might vary between different styles. But if you're just beginning and you're still just kind of getting that pattern down, then this is going to be really great for you. Okay, so to start off, the first thing that we're going to talk about is just this little leg slide here. Okay, let me show you from the side. We're going to slide one leg back and then slide the other leg back. So to practice that, we'll just do alternating legs. And what I want you to think about what's happening here is starting off with just a nice tall posture. The first thing that's going to happen is we're going to feel a little bit of hinge in the hip. So if you are familiar with weightlifting and you know what a deadlift is, it's the same thing that's happening here, but it's just a tiny little bit. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of a hip hinge, and along with that, our glute of one leg is going to activate as we slide one leg out. And a cue that I really like to give for this one is that we're letting this leg escape from behind us. We're not taking our bodies back with it. We're letting that hip hinge, and as we slide this other leg back, we're loading weight into this front leg here. So as you can see, my front leg is bent, and I have this sort of feeling now as if I'm about to step up on something. So we have a lot of engagement here through the quad and through the glute. The back leg is straight. So that means my quad is fully engaged and my foot remains on the ground. And I want to think of this as if I am leading back with my heel. Okay, so as you see, the hip hinges just a little bit. This back leg stays engaged and straight. The foot stays on the floor, and I'm loading my weight into my front leg. And then I push into that front foot to stand back up, and I repeat the process on the other side. Okay, so that's the very first thing that we start with. This is a way just to activate that motion of letting this leg slide back, staying engaged, and letting that weight shift over that front leg. Okay, so that's the first little bit. The second piece now is adding in the knee lift. I just usually call this the transition position because this is a position that you can use in shuffling to really transition between any other move. And that's this right here. Okay, so it's just lifting our knee up in front of us. And the way this is going to build onto what we just did is the leg that we just let slide out from underneath us in the back. that back leg is the one that is now going to lift up in front. Okay, so as you place that pressure on your front foot to stand up on it, the back foot is going to lift, and now we're lifting that knee up in front of us, going into this hip flexion and this really nice balanced position on the other leg. Okay, from here, we're going to set that leg down. Try it with the other leg. So now we've transferred our weight into the foot that was lifted, setting that down, transferring our weight to it, letting the other foot slide back. Now our weight is loaded into this front leg, and the back leg is going to lift. So imagine that you're like revving up to knee someone. That's the feeling that you kind of want to have, okay? So back leg is fully engaged and straight. Stand up on that front leg, and we are lifting the knee in front of us. Put that foot down, transfer the weight onto it, let the other foot slide back. Leg isn't fully engaged. Stand up, lift the knee, and then start to work through that just a little bit more quickly. Okay, so we transfer the weight down, slide the other leg back, and then lift that back knee. Transfer the weight, slide the other leg back, stand up and lift the knee. Down, slide back and lift, down, slide back and lift. Okay, so the next piece of this, it's the same thing that we were just doing with one little change. Instead of just placing this leg down and shifting, now, when I said before that we're thinking of letting this back leg escape, now we're really going to let that leg escape, okay? So instead of just placing it down and sliding the other leg back, now I'm going to drop and do it all at once, okay? So this is the part where your body can sometimes be like, wait, I don't understand what's happening here, because you have all of your balance on one leg, and now you have to trust that you're going to be landing on this front leg and catching all of your weight on this front leg so that you can let this leg go back behind you, okay? But that's exactly what's happening. Get a lot of balance work doing this too, okay? So you have one knee lifted. You're going to drop into that weight transfer. As you slide back, make sure that that back leg is straight and engaged, and then pick it up, go to the knee, and then drop into it again. Letting the leg that you were balancing on slide back behind you, catching your weight on this front leg. So one thing to note here is that it's really important to keep your weight evenly distributed, or I should say, make sure that your feet are split right underneath your center of gravity, because if you drop too far, you're going to be doing this leaning thing here and taking all of the weight off of your back leg, and it can end up in this sort of like rocking motion. So that's the next thing to practice, okay, is that you're dropping into it, letting the back leg come up, and then dropping into it again. Let the back leg come up and drop, lift and drop. The next piece is called the micro bounce. So I describe these a lot as just little scooches because that's kind of what they feel like, and it looks like this. Okay, so it's like tiny little hops, but I almost don't even like calling them little hops because it's not like you're clearing air underneath your foot and getting a lot of space underneath it. It feels like, imagine someone was grabbing you from the back of your shirt and like pulling you back, and that little scooch or that little micro bounce is like you catching yourself or you keeping your balance. So the next thing to practice here, and I'll show you from the side, is find your balance on one side, and then just imagine someone's grabbing you by the back of the shirt and pulling you back. And as you do that, you're letting your knee bend, and this little knee bend and pushing into and through the floor is what's allowing you to slide back. And then practice that on the other side. So finding that balance. Think of keeping your chest up and your eyes forward. That is something that I tell my students a lot, is to lift their eyes up. We have a tendency to want to look down while we're learning. I'm not really sure why. We feel more secure there, but our body will typically go where our eyes are. Our body's going to follow where we're looking. So if you're looking down, you're going to have a really hard time keeping your balance. So think of lifting up, keeping your chest lifted, keeping your eyes up and forward, and taking those little scooches and keeping your core engaged. I don't know. I just tried to say a lot of things there. Things I got it on. Eyes in, chest up, core engaged, and scooch. Okay? So practice that a little bit on the left, and then practice on the right. You can start really slow, especially if balance is a challenge, and if you need to, stick your arms out to the side. So now we have to put it all together. So we're going to take everything that we did before and just stick that micro bounce in. And here's where it's going to go. So start with one knee lifted, and then drop into it. And really take note that when I drop into this here, I'm still going into that hip slightly back position. That's going to be really important. And now, while I lift my back leg back up to that knee lifted transition position, boom, there is where the micro bounce happens on the leg that was in front. I take this leg, I'm going to just split my center of gravity here, going into this split stance. I'm going to push my pressure into this front leg, and this is the one that's going to do the micro bounce as I bring this leg up. So then we start to work that simultaneously, dropping into it, then lifting up. Drop into it, and notice here I'm starting to put pressure in this front foot already. I'm going to push into it and micro bounce, and that sort of momentum is what's going to help me pull that back leg forward. Okay? Drop down into it, and I lift up. The hips become really important because it's going to help us keep that back leg straight and engaged, because one thing that our bodies really like to do is start to go into like a hamstring curl too early, and then our leg just doesn't know where to go and then tries to go back to the back again, and all kinds of things happen. So keeping the hips back, and then that's also going to help with that core engagement here. There's also a natural tendency that a lot of people have of like going into this hip extension here, which kind of turns it into a more like aerobic-y type of feel. So for this particular variation, or just this foundation movement, really think about having those hips slightly back in the core engaged. And then that's it. That's all of the pieces of your running man, okay? So we have this hip flexion here with a knee up, and then next we're going to have the weight transfer. So that means right here in this position, if all of my balance is on my left leg, I need to get it to where it's on my right leg. Back leg is straight and engaged. Now I'm going to push into this front foot to do the micro bounce back while simultaneously lifting this back knee up. Boom. And then repeat the process on the other side. Drop and lift. Drop and lift. So as you're doing this brain first learning, it's really, really important to stop and think about every step. If you think you are like, oh, okay, it feels good, and then you just start to go, and then all of the old conditioning that you have in your body is going to creep back in, because it's going to do what it naturally knows how to do. You haven't created those patterns yet. So literally take time in every position to be like, okay, I'm balancing on my left leg now. My front leg is up, and that's the one I need to drop into. My back leg needs to go straight. Picture yourself in that position before you move to it, and then move there. And then stop, think, okay, I have to push off of my front leg to scooch back while my back leg is coming forward. Literally go through it step by step like that, and as slow as you need to, until then it starts to feel natural to just gradually start speeding it up. And then eventually you're here, and then you might see a lot of other things and other like habits and conditioning start to creep in, which I am going to be making another video about just some common mistakes. I don't even really like to use that word, but that's all I've got for now. Common mistakes and fixes in the running man. So when I have that ready, I will link that in this one as well. But for now, that was your running man deconstructed. So take a look for the accompanying video that I have of doing a follow along choreography to a song that puts all of these moves in sequential order, breaks it down, and puts it all back together again. Again, just a great way to practice. It's a great way to warm up and just kind of get all of those movement patterns and muscles that you need activated. So I hope this was helpful. If it was and you would like to see more like this, it would really help me out if you would like this video. Send me a comment, let me know if it was helpful, if it wasn't, or if there's something else that you would like to see, or if you have a question, and of course by subscribing to the channel. So have fun with this, have fun with the follow along choreography, and I'll see you in the next one.